Welcome to the World Roundup show here on France 24. Emmanuel Macron says to Sébastien Lecornu, try again, as he reappoints the right-leaning leader as Prime Minister. The move comes just days after Lecornu's shock resignation in a desperate bid to end a year-long political deadlock. With a hung parliament, sidelined far-right and far-left parties and repeated failed minority governments, Macron is facing fierce criticism even from within his own camp. The new administration now must confront an unpopular pension reform, mounting debt and fragile economic growth, raising questions about whether Lecornu can survive long enough to govern once again. Now, for its part, the National Rally has already vowed to vote down the incoming administration. Ellen Gainsford has been at the Élysée for France 24.
What I can say is that it's been a very dramatic week in French politics, just to leave us with in the same place as we were on Monday, really, with the outgoing Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu now going to be going into his second mandate. And to give you a little bit of a recap of how we've got to this place, well, Sébastien Lecornu, of course, gave his resignation on Monday. That was after he'd announced his cabinet ministers, and it was one of those picks that had really caused some friction, and that was the naming of Bruno Le Maire as Minister of the Armies. And it was that choice that caused the Republican group, the Les Républicains, the traditional right-wing party, to say that they no longer wanted to participate in the government. And well, that led to Sébastien Lecornu saying that he was unable to continue and offering his resignation. Well, this week we've seen him conducting meetings, staying on to conduct meetings at Emmanuel Macron's request with the different political leaders, trying to find a way out of this crisis. And he addressed the nation on French television on Wednesday in a very high-profile interview, saying that he felt that his mission was complete. Well, it seems that now he's ready to accept a second mission from Emmanuel Macron. But following today's meetings that we've seen with those different political leaders, we saw some real rage coming from left-wing parties. So it remains to be seen how Sébastien Lecornu is going to fare when he tries to get that budget passed next week.
And we can get immediate reaction from Lecornu on the social media platform X, accepting the nomination. I accept out of duty the mission entrusted to me, he says. And he goes on to note the budget problems, saying that they must approve a budget by the end of the year and get out of this political crisis that has exasperated the French people. And the instability that is detrimental to France's image and its interests. And we've also heard from part of the France Insoumise, that is the French Unveiled party, Éric Coquerel, so immediately from the hard left, saying nothing has changed to nothing has changed. It's evident that and obvious for several days that censorship is going to be even more here. Let's get more with politics professor Rainbow Murray. She joined us just now when we didn't have a prime minister. Now we do, and it's the same old, same old. Rainbow, what exactly is the thinking of Emmanuel Macron?
There's a saying in French, plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. More things change, the more they stay the same. I don't think that phrase has ever been more apt. I don't think Emmanuel Macron wanted Lecornu to stand down, but as was just mentioned, Lecornu could not get the members of the government to agree with each other, and it was an untenable situation. And I think what Macron has spent this week doing is establishing that outside the extreme left and the extreme right, there is no appetite for an election. And that is perhaps the one thing that all the other parties can agree on. And he's counting on that one thing being enough to get them to cohere again sufficiently to enable Lecornu to get a budget passed. And having a prime minister in place by Monday is not insignificant. Monday is the last day that the budget legislation process could commence in order to conclude by year's end, which is when the current budget expires and France doesn't want to be without a budget again. But I think a lot of people have just been looking at this, sort of shaking their heads in bemusement, thinking, really? After all that, he's gone back to the same person who admitted on Monday that he couldn't do the job.
Well, he admitted that under his administration that he had picked. I mean, I'm just curious. We had the likes of Bruno Le Maire put into the defense ministry position. We also had Roland Lescure as the poisoned chalice owner of the finance ministry. Do we expect these same names to crop up again and be chosen?
Well, definitely not Bruno Le Maire. I think that's pretty clear. He's already made it clear that he hadn't realised that he was the problem, and as soon as he did realise, he said, "I'm out. I don't want to be a problem. If my presence in this government is going to bring it down, then I'm gone." And hopefully his exit will smooth the path to getting other parties back in to work together again. But one of the things that was striking about the government that was formed on Sunday evening, only to collapse on Monday morning, is that it was very similar to the government before that, under the previous Prime Minister, François Bayrou. If you're struggling to keep up with all of this, it's because it keeps changing. But a lot of the ministers were the same faces in the same portfolios. Even some of the people who hadn't been in the previous government have been in ones before then. So after all of this discussion this week, we might expect to see at least a little bit of change, because if everything remains the same as it was on Sunday night, and that the only thing that's changed is that Macron has tried to browbeat people into submission, I think he's got a shot coming. I don't think the other parties will settle for a week of negotiations only to go nowhere.
Well, the National Rally has already said that it's going to be voting down this government.
Yes, that doesn't come as a huge surprise. I don't think there's a great deal that would have happened that would have brought them on board. Macron's made no attempt to bring them on board, to be fair. He's left them out of all of these negotiations. They haven't been at the table, and they haven't expressed any wish to be. So I think Macron is almost counting on the reactions from the far left and the far right, which are entirely predictable, saying, this is unacceptable and we need elections now. I think he's actually kind of counting on that as putting pressure on the other parties to try and work together to avoid elections that would allow the extremes to consolidate their positions.
Rainbow Murray, thank you so much for outlining where we're at. Sébastien Lecornu reappointed as Prime Minister of France.